Kissing feels like the most natural thing in the world. It might actually be one of the newest things humans do. For most of our species' history, there's a real chance no human being had ever kissed anyone at all. That sounds impossible. Kissing feels hardwired, instinctive, the kind of thing that surely goes back as far as humans do. But when scientists actually went looking for evidence, what they found completely upended that assumption. Let's start with the obvious question. If kissing were a true biological instinct, universal to our species the way facial expressions of fear or disgust are, you'd expect to find it everywhere, in every culture, throughout history, without anyone needing to teach it. That's not what researchers found. In 2015, anthropologist William Jankowiak and his colleagues published a study examining 168 cultures around the world, looking specifically for evidence of romantic sexual kissing. Their finding was striking. Only 46% of the cultures studied showed any evidence of romantic kissing at all. That's less than half. In the majority of human societies documented, kissing on the mouth simply wasn't part of how people expressed affection or attraction. Some cultures didn't just lack the behavior, they found it genuinely strange, even repulsive when they encountered it. Early European explorers and missionaries making contact with various indigenous societies across the world recorded reactions of confusion or disgust when they witnessed or attempted mouth-to-mouth kissing. In several documented cases, local observers reacted the way you or I might react to watching someone deliberately exchange saliva as a greeting, because from an outside perspective with no cultural context for the gesture, that's essentially what it looks like. So if kissing isn't universal, where did it actually come from? The honest answer is that nobody knows with certainty, but there are competing theories, and the evidence points towards something surprisingly practical rather than romantic. One leading theory traces romantic kissing back to a much older, non-romantic behavior, mouth-to-mouth feeding. In many primate species, including some of our closest evolutionary relatives, mothers chew food into a soft paste and pass it directly from their own mouths into the mouths of their infants. Some anthropologists argue this practice, which likely existed among early humans as well, established some of the first neural associations between mouth-to-mouth contact and intimacy, trust, and affection. Under this theory, romantic kissing may have evolved later as a kind of borrowed ritual, repurposing an old, deeply wired parent-infant bonding behavior into an adult romantic one. Other researchers point to a more directly biological explanation. Kissing, especially deep kissing, brings two people into extremely close proximity, close enough to detect subtle chemical signals through smell and taste. Some evolutionary psychologists argue that kissing may function, even now, as an unconscious way of assessing potential partners. Saliva can carry information about a person's immune system, hormonal state, and even genetic compatibility. Under this theory, kissing isn't primarily about affection at all. It's an evaluation mechanism, dressed up as an act of intimacy. Here's what's fascinating. Both theories can be true at once, and neither actually requires kissing to be some kind of ancient, hardwired human universal. Both point to the behavior emerging from something else, something more functional, only later becoming associated with romance and affection in the cultures where it developed. So when did the specific practice we'd recognize as romantic kissing actually show up in the historical record? The earliest confirmed written evidence comes from a surprising place. In 2022, researchers examining ancient Mesopotamian texts, particularly Sumerian and Babylonian clay tablets dating back roughly 4,500 years, identified explicit references to kissing in both religious and secular contexts. One Sumerian poem, describing a romantic encounter between a married woman and a man who wasn't her husband, explicitly mentions kissing as part of their exchange. This pushed the confirmed written history of romantic kissing back significantly further than previous estimates, which had often pointed to ancient India's Vedic Sanskrit texts, dated to roughly 1500 BCE as the earliest clear reference. For a long time, scholars assumed kissing likely originated in South Asia and spread outward from there through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange along routes like the Silk Road, eventually reaching Europe and beyond. The 2022 Mesopotamian findings complicated that clean narrative considerably, suggesting the practice, or at least the written acknowledgement of it, may have arisen independently in multiple places or spread through contact routes far older and more complex than a single point of origin. What we can say with more confidence is that kissing spread across the ancient world wasn't uniform or automatic. It moved along trade routes, military campaigns, and cultural contact zones, sometimes taking centuries to become an accepted, normalized gesture in a given society, and in some documented cases, never taking hold at all. Even within cultures that eventually adopted kissing, the meaning attached to it varied enormously. In ancient Rome, kissing was actually a highly structured social behavior with different categories and rules. The Romans distinguished between the osculum, a kiss on the cheek exchanged between friends or family, the basium, a kiss on the lips shared between close friends or romantic partners, and the savolium, a deep, passionate kiss reserved specifically for lovers. Roman law even addressed kissing directly. Legal texts from the period debated whether a betrothal could be considered binding based on whether a kiss had been exchanged between the engaged couple, treating the gesture as something with genuine social and even legal weight. Meanwhile, in other documented societies across the same general era, from parts of East Asia to various regions in Africa, kissing on the mouth wasn't practiced at all as a romantic gesture. Affection was expressed instead through gestures like rubbing noses together, breathing in a partner's scent, or other forms of close physical contact that carried the same emotional weight kissing does in cultures where it's common. This raises an obvious question. If kissing isn't hardwired, why does it feel so instinctive to so many of us today? The likely answer is cultural saturation, layered on top of whatever biological mechanisms may be at play. In much of the modern world, kissing is depicted constantly in films, television, literature, and social norms from early childhood onward. By the time most people in kissing cultures reach adolescence, they've witnessed the gesture thousands of times, embedded in nearly every story about romance they've ever encountered. What feels like pure instinct may actually be an enormously well-reinforced cultural script, so consistently modeled that it feels indistinguishable from something biologically innate. That doesn't mean the biological theories are wrong. It's entirely possible that the underlying mechanisms, mouth-to-mouth bonding behaviors, chemical assessment through close proximity, gave early humans in various cultures a foundation on which the specific ritual of romantic kissing could be built. But the specific act, the specific gesture, the specific meaning attached to pressing your mouth against someone else's mouth as an expression of romantic affection appears to be something closer to a widespread invention than a universal instinct, one that different societies arrived at, adapted, rejected, or simply never developed, largely independent of each other. So the next time you kiss someone, or watch two people kiss in a film, or think of it as simply what humans do when they love each other, it's worth remembering that for a huge percentage of the humans who have ever lived, across a huge percentage of documented cultures, that gesture would have meant nothing at all, or would have looked completely foreign and strange. It isn't ancient in the way you assume it is. It isn't universal in the way you assume it is. It's something stranger and more interesting than either of those things. A behavior invented, independently or through contact, again and again by different groups of humans, who somehow arrived at roughly the same conclusion that pressing your mouth against someone else's mouth could mean something,